At Five Star Bank, community is at the heart of what we do. Every day we strive to have thoughtful solutions for our customers and help our communities prosper. Honest dialogue about the issues affecting the region is vitally important to that prosperity. We are proud to be part of the conversation and hope you'll join in.
Immigration, police conduct, income inequality, health care reform, common core educational standards. All these issues are tough to talk about and are usually discussed in sound bites rather than conversations. Is there a better way for people of different views to talk about the critical issues of the day? A new effort, Village Square, says there is. Village Square is designed to be an inclusive and comfortable forum for civic engagement. Tara Thronson, project manager of Village Square, and Veronica Blake, CEO of the Placer Community Foundation, join us today to talk about Village Square and why its success matters to our community. Veronica, why are you so excited about Village Square?
Oh, I'm so passionate about Village Square because I care about this community. And anymore, it's so difficult to have conversations with people that have a different opinion than yours. On Facebook, we see people dropping sort of one-liners, and it would be tempting to unfriend people, but I'd rather instead be able to actually have a civic dialogue with my fellow community members to be able to really understand the issues from all perspectives and be able to advance them for the benefit of our community.
From all perspectives. Tara, tell us exactly what is Village Square?
Well, the Village Square was founded to address this concern that Veronica mentions of we've started self-segregating ourselves in our nation and in our local communities into communities that think like us. And with the 24-hour news cycle, we can read news feeds that align with our point of view, and so we're essentially living in an echo chamber. And we've really lost that safe space to have a civil dialogue with those that don't think like us. So the Village Square was founded in Tallahassee, Florida, to take back that area that our founders based our country on, of creating a space where you can have civil dialogue among other points of view on tough topics that all of our communities face.
It's a lot about conversations and building linkages, and it's ironic because I think the founder of Village Square is Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn.
Yes, so Reid Hoffman, one of the co-founders of LinkedIn, got wind of the Village Square in Tallahassee, and he said, we really need this in California. So he helped, from his personal income, created a grant to help bring the Village Square to California. And after a statewide search in many regions, the Village Square chose the Sacramento region to be the launch point of the Village Square to the West Coast.
So I don't know whether that is a compliment or speaks to our dysfunctionality.
Oh, I think it's a compliment. I mean, there's a willingness to work together in Sacramento, but there's a lot of complication with the dialogue that advances the movements that we have here. When you think of tough issues like homelessness, public safety, how we're going to protect our agricultural lands, all of these issues have a lot of opinions, and we have a very welcoming community, and it's a good place to start practicing this type of civic dialogue.
So how does it work? How do you set up these dialogues?
Well, the main part of the program is it's a 3-dinner series. So think of it like a theater season where you can buy one ticket or all 3, and it's a dinner event. And the idea is to it feels like a community dinner party. And if we create a setting where you feel like you're in the facilitator's living room with what happens to be subject matter experts on whatever topic we're speaking about, and you're in dialogue with them, then we've really been successful with our program. And we're really intentional about who we invite to be on that panel, because we want subject matter experts that represent both sides of an issue, but they need to model civil dialogue. Because in this day and age, what we see on TV isn't behavior that would be acceptable on the schoolyard. So we need to start practicing how do we have tough conversations on issues where we very likely don't agree, but I really want to hear the other point of view so that we can be transformed and try to move towards good together.
I guess the question is, are we in a different place in our country than we have been historically? Because, I mean, there used to be fights on the floors of Congress. And there was the famous duel between Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton. Are we just cycling through the normal sort of fighting and coming together that this country's always experienced? Or are we really in a different place today?
I think we may be in a different place. And I think one of the concerns that I have and one of the attractions I have to Village Square is really the fact that it's based in fact. That, so much anymore, it's very difficult to check the facts. I mean, we have Snopes, we have PolitiFact as a possibility, but depending on how you get your news, it may be slanted one way or another. And so I think one of the real attractions to Village Square is that people will be there and they'll be basing their conversations in actual fact. And I think that's going to be refreshing for the community to be able to participate in actually having those kind of truths front and center.
Veronica's onto something with this, because one of the challenges in bringing together any type of discussion on an issue is it seems we've retreated to our respective corners and that everybody has their own set of facts. I was watching a documentary on Walter Cronkite a couple of nights ago, and when Uncle Walter spoke, that was the way it was, as he used to say. But today, depending on what news channel you turn on or which radio station you listen to, it's like that we can't even agree on an essential set of facts. How are you going to deal with that?
Well, we look to some in the academic world for data and research and other points of view, but that is one of the challenges we're facing. And frankly, I feel some of the challenges we have is where we get our news sources, is it opinion and blogs versus real journalism, and trying to find both points of view. So there is the research that has been done and peer reviewed that's considered data and facts, and then it is bringing the different perspectives, because with policy and all these major social issues, there's a lot of nuance in how you solution it as well.
So the skeptic in me, though, wonders whether or not this is going to be sort of a replay of California Forward. Now, with all due respect to California Forward, that was an initiative that was supposed to bring people together on both sides of the aisles to work on policy issues. But it never, while it did some work, it never really achieved the true vision that it had set out for itself in the beginning. How is it that you all are going to ensure that you get everybody around the table so that if you can get the facts right, the conversation will be considered to be legitimate because all views are represented?
Sure. I think a part of that would be the price point. Tara mentioned that there's dinner included, and so the price point to attend a Village Square dinner is really low at $30. And in fact, there's scholarships available to people who can't afford that. So the idea is to be incredibly inclusive and to include communities where, depending on what the topic is, they may have interest in this, and to really pull out all the stops to get them at the table. And I do think that's what will set this project apart from others.
And in addition to the low price point, we also offer 2 other events during the season, the school year season, which are completely free to the public. And that's to completely remove cost as a barrier to bring more folks into the conversation, because we know to really be transformational, we need to have a very diverse participation in every sense of the word.
I'm glad you raised that, because your first event was held at the San Pinel Community Center in Sacramento, South Sacramento, neighborhood I grew up in. And the question that automatically pops into mind is whether or not the location was in a unusual location for this type of dialogue, but whether or not, in fact, you all were able to attract at least some of the residents in the neighborhood or the people in the community who aren't a normal part of the conversation.
I think we absolutely did. I mean, I attended that first dinner, and I sat at a table full of people I'd never met before that weren't the usual suspects in the community. They answered the call from an ad or some sort of advertisement in the newspaper, and they said that it was time for them to get more involved civically, and they saw the Village Square as a venue to do that.
Well, you do understand the skepticism about this just turns into another place where the elites talk to the elites.
Yeah, and these were just normal people from Davis.
Right.
Okay.
And there were other people that I met as well from Sacramento County and Placer County who similar call, just, hey, I saw it in the paper and I thought I would check this out, or I saw your poster in a coffee shop. And I think we're also at the beginning of what I like to call it more of a movement that we're building. We're getting the word out, and I think some of the free events, people can get a taste of it and then and come and learn more. And it's we're going to grow it over time, and we're trying to reach out into communities that we don't already have relationships with.
Were there any people there from the Meadowview community?
I believe so. I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I'd have to look at the guest
All right.
list.
All right. I wanted it to focus on what's next in terms of the big conversations. How are you all going to decide what topics move to the front?
Well, I think the Valley Vision Board, and I'm really proud to serve on that, focuses really on the 3 E's, which is, environmental sustainability, economic prosperity, and in social equity. And in that sort of nexus between those things, there are a variety of different topics that we could tackle that really advance the vision of Valley Vision, but also address really important community needs and create really important community dialogues.
And I should mention for the record that, full disclosure, that Valley Vision is this region's think tank, and that I just happen in another life to be the chairman of the board of that organization. Yes. Just so that way we get all conflicts out on the table.
Right.
So what's next for Village Square?
Well, moving forward, our next subject's on public safety. And the title of the programs, both the free and the dinner, is Are We Safe? A neighborly conversation beyond the headlines. And we've seen a lot of things in our national news, but also locally when we have bullying, school bullying going on, we have community violence, domestic violence, and the idea is with the free event is to bring folks together more of a town hall style of what makes you feel safe and what's going on in our community, and then moving to the dinner, having subject matter experts to help us dive deeper as we continue the dialogue in there. But then also in the future, is homelessness and housing is up in future months, and we have a list of ideas like what Veronica said that we're considering, and we're looking for those points of tension where we can bring together varying viewpoints so that we can really hear.
And Scott, could I add too that I think with the diverse topics that we'll be covering, we'll bring in more people. Mm-hmm. I mean, to answer your overall question of how are we going to ensure people are going to participate, the topics will ensure those participation. It'll get different folks out for different reasons.
There has been an issue on civic engagement and dialogue where historically, and this was the problem with California Forward, is that they were able to get people that were more on the left side mm-hmm. of the equation politically to engage, but they did not have the full range of people from the conservative side of the equation. Mm-hmm. How are you all going to make sure that you've got representation across the board?
That's going to be good planning and elbow grease. We're going to have to pick up the phone and make sure that we invite those diverse communities into the meeting and that they feel welcome there and that they feel it's worth their while. It's going to be a tough challenge for the board and for the staff, but I think we're ready for it. I think the community deserves it.
And when that voice is heard on the panel, when they're featured, then that draws that constituency to the event as well.
What's the expected outcome for engaging in this Village Square process? How will our community be different?
Well, we've talked a lot about this, and the outcome is not necessarily action to solve these problems immediately per se, because in 90 minutes we're not going to solve homelessness. It'd be fantastic if we could, but we need to be realistic. What we hope to do with these different subjects is to advance the thinking on some of these complex problems, and at the same time build relationships and trust amongst our community members that are neighbors, and we might not have otherwise had an opportunity to meet them nor think like them. And once we have that trust and relationship, then we can start moving towards solutions. When I first started staffing the Village Square, the first question I asked one of the founders was, what's different in Tallahassee now, 7 years later, than when you started? And her answer was, the air is really different here. It's not what happens at each dinner event, it's what happens in between. It's the
Really?
Yes, she said it's the conservative pastor working with the progressive rabbi on issues of hunger in their community. And now they've gotten to a point where the community members ask the Village Square to host forums. They had a forum on the affordable health care when that was being worked on. All the town hall meetings in the community, people were yelling at each other. When the Village Square hosted it, it was civil. We have a civility bell to hold us all in check when we get a little
civility bell.
Yes.
Can I borrow that? I need that sometimes at home.
Certainly.
Well, that's a great point too, is that I think that the Village Square can help us with our own dialogues with our own families where it hits home the closest, right?
Yes, I've certainly participated in uncivil debate, and I have a lot to learn to getting to respectful dialogue in some of my family situations.
So is there a set of ground rules, or do we train people? How does this work?
We do. At the beginning of the dinner events, we do share the ground rules, and we introduce the civility bells. One's in the hand of a liberal and one's in the hand of a conservative. And we ask people to avoid tribal clapping. When someone says something you agree with, cheering and clapping, and when someone says something you don't agree with, groaning. Trying to be respectful of either side. And the civility bell is there so that if we start getting into that habit, it's just a way to ring it and say, oh wait, we all agreed to this environment by coming and engaging and setting it so we have equal expectations.
And I witnessed it with my own two eyes at the first meeting that we had. I mean, we had enough civility in the group that a person that had, the topic was on voting and why people don't vote. And we had a person actually was brave enough to get up in front of the group and admit why he didn't vote. Yeah. And really felt safe and comfortable sharing that.
What did he say? I'm just curious.
Oh, well, he said a lot of things, but he also, but one of the things that he said was that he didn't want to make a decision when he didn't feel informed, and he felt that he didn't have resources or an understanding of the issues well enough to make an informed decision.
It's interesting you say that, because one of the primary partners is the Sacramento Bee. And I know that there are other partners involved with Village Square that represent information sources. So I guess that probably was a brave statement.
It was a very brave statement, but I think that's the environment that Village Square creates.
Well, and what I really loved is our research and data expert then responded and said, that's how our system is set up. The politicians already know that the Democrats, very far Democrats, are going to vote for the Democrats, same for the Republicans, and they're fighting for the middle. So they want to stay general and vague and not really get into too many specifics to try to win the vote over. So it was very interesting to me to hear the researcher who's dedicated her life to civic engagement and voting saying the data backs up what you're saying and your point of view.
Yeah, and it scares voters away.
It does.
So the hoped for outcome is not necessarily walking out with a new initiative or a new consensus on something, but it's really to leave people to kind of chew on it for a while?
I think so, but also to be in sufficient enough relationship with each other so that we're capable of working together to tackle the tough issues.
And we encourage people at the end of the first dinner to say, go have a cup of coffee with someone that you met here tonight that you might not share all the same viewpoints. Get to know them, build a relationship. So we hope that grows over time as we build this movement.
What's been the toughest part of moving this initiative forward so far?
There's many that come to mind. I think finding the right subjects, and when we're intentionally going to get more controversial, because that's the design, and that was the most feedback I got from the participants of the first dinner, is they said, we love this, we want a more controversial topic. But when you go into controversy, how do you find the right speakers to come and model civil dialogue and know and trust us that we're going to create a friendly and safe space for you to have this
If the people who are joining us right now have what they think is just a barn burner of a topic, how do they get that to you?
Well, they can go to our website, sacramento.tothevillagesquare.org, and hit the contact us and email us there. They can call me up any day. They can attend an event, and we always have evaluation forms at the end where we ask for topics.
So coming back to trying to get to those controversial topics, and your first topic was by some considered to be not controversial enough. When you're dealing with those flashpoint issues where there are extremely strongly held views, it's not just who's in the room, but it's also how you collect the data. How do you go about selecting that jointly agreed upon set of facts?
That's a great question. I think what Tara said earlier about really looking at the data and getting it from reliable sources is going to be critical, because one thing we wouldn't want to happen at Village Square is for people to call into question the facts that are being presented. So it is of critical importance, and that's really going to be a lot of staff time vetting the information and doing the fact checking to make sure that the content is relevant and not offensive to the people who attend the events.
Absolutely.
Do you get concerned at all that in this era of 500 cable channels and the fact that people are backing into their respective corners, that there might not necessarily be enough interest in hearing viewpoints other than your own in order to build a critical mass for this initiative?
Often I do think that as well, because one of the things that scares me is people don't even necessarily realize that their news sources are biased. And I know since I've engaged in this project, I've been checking myself as well. However, when I've been engaging with folks throughout the community, doing outreach, telling them about the Village Square, I found there's a real hunger for this. I think a lot of people are tired of the banter back and forth and saying, can we just have a real conversation? I really don't need someone else yelling and pointing a finger at me.
I agree with that, and I think people really want to see solutions. They're tired of the gridlock, and they know that the way that we've been doing business isn't going to work anymore, and that if we are going to advance our agenda in this region, we have got to start talking to each other.
Well, we just got news reports that the voter participation for the last election was the lowest that I believe has ever been recorded. Or if not that, then at least very, very close. How do efforts like civic engagement and dialogue, what type of impact does that have on overall participation, voter participation, but also participation in civic spaces?
Well, I think if it gives people a venue to have a voice and to better understand the issues, they will be more willing to participate. And I think we've also got the challenge of how we're going to engage the next generation of young people. I mean, they're really the future of this region. And if we don't create spaces for them to have a dialogue, then I don't know what will happen in our future. I mean, this is a really important time for the region to be engaging in this work.
And are you doing anything in particular to try and make sure that the younger people of the region are involved in those dialogues?
Absolutely. Well, one of the things Veronica mentioned was the scholarships, and we're really doing outreach to younger groups. Like we had some youth through the Center for Multicultural Collaboration came and volunteered, and we say if you volunteer, then you get to stay. You have a free ticket, free dinner, participate in the event. We had them at a table, asked them to engage as well. We did outreach to young leaders groups in the region, but we're continuing to build those relationships to find different touch points, and also relationships with the universities as well.
Nothing ever goes like it's planned, and sometimes that's not necessarily a bad thing. It can be a good thing at times. When you did your first event, were there any aha moments or things that you didn't anticipate that you would see that presented themselves?
I'll say a few. The chemistry of the people on the stage, of our speakers, was much more than I would have expected. They laughed, they had a great time, everyone felt comfortable. The engagement with the audience.
Even though they represented a variety of perspectives.
Yes, we had a Republican, a Democrat, and a researcher from UC Davis. And they had not met until just a few days prior and before the event. But you would have thought they were old friends on the stage. It was fantastic. And then also, of course, I'm scared when I say, oh, civic dialogue, and you can engage with the speakers. And I thought, what if no one speaks up or says anything? But some folks said we could have talked for 30 more minutes. And when we ended, we thought, oh, people are going to leave and run out the door. But they stayed and networked and mingled and talked. And we left, and I gave a big sigh of relief of this is what we wanted to happen. And there was this chemistry and magic in the evening that was, as a planner, I can plan so many things, but I can't dictate how that's going to end. And
what about you, Veronica? What did you see?
I felt the same way. I really enjoyed the conversations that were happening at the dinner table. In the beginning at our dinner table, it was really difficult to get started because people were afraid to share why they came and why they were involved. But as the evening progressed and the information was being shared, we really found out that even though even politically we might have been opposites, we had a lot more in common than we had apart.
The composition of those rooms, again, you started in South Sacramento, which is that particular South Sacramento neighborhood, Meadowview, had the distinction in the 2000 census of being the most diverse census tract in the most diverse city in the United States. Now, I don't know if it still holds that reputation, but it was. Is that diversity representative by the Village Square movement?
We're working towards that. I think there was a good mix in the room, but as I said earlier, we know that we need to be diverse in every sense of the word: age, gender, race, socioeconomic status, and we're working there. But with the Village Square, it's a conversation like we're having today, and it's building relationships, and it takes time. It's it's name recognition. We're building a brand, and so we're hoping to get to that place, and we know that's the direction we need to go.
So what should we expect to see in the next 12 months from Village Square?
I think there are going to be several more dinner parties with great topics that Tara mentioned. Public safety would be one, homelessness would be another. And I think that you're going to see a lot more outreach being done in the community to get people of all sorts of opinions and backgrounds to the table.
And in our final moments, for people who want to get involved, the contact information again?
Sacramento.tothevillagesquare.org.
All right. Well, appreciate the effort, and I'm looking forward to a lot more dialogue within the region.
Yes, thanks, Scott. It was great to join you today.
Well done. And that's our show. Thanks to our guests, and thanks to you for watching Studio Sacramento. I'm Scott Syfax. See you next time right here on KVIE.
At Five Star Bank, community is at the heart of what we do. Every day we strive to have thoughtful solutions for our customers and help our communities prosper. Honest dialogue about the issues affecting the region is vitally important to that prosperity. We are proud to be part of the conversation and hope you'll join in.
All episodes of Studio Sacramento, along with other KVIE programs, are available to watch online at kvie.org/video.